Hi, this is Nathan Crane, creator of the Search for Sustainability documentary series, and I'm really happy to be sharing tonight's episode with you. You know, when I was a teenager, I actually nearly lost my life multiple times. I was homeless, I was sick, I had addictions that I was dealing with, and I almost didn't make it past 18 years old. Then I had an epiphany and a wake-up call and a desire to then take back control of my life and my health, learn what it means to be healthy and to be vibrant and to have youthfulness and longevity. And I began on that path and spent 10 years researching and experimenting extensively what it means to have sustainable health. You know, it's unsustainable to have disease. It's unsustainable to eat toxic food. It's unsustainable to not be healthy. And so health is a choice. You know, there are very few conditions, if any, that cannot be reversed simply by incorporating the right healthful practices into your life. And that's being proven by doctors and scientists and neurologists all over the world, that every condition that we believe may not be reversed actually can not only be prevented, but in most cases can be completely reversed. And we need to know what to do and how to do it. We need to know which foods are toxic and what's causing the issues, and we need to know how to have vibrant health so that we can live healthfully, sustainably. You know, it is very sustainable to be healthy because we can sustain that for long periods of time if we know how to do it. And so in tonight's episode, I'm really excited to share with you multiple viewpoints from leading experts from all walks of life who are going to teach us really how to be healthy and how to do it in a sustainable way, how to have more vibrance and more vitality. And I know that's something that's important for all of us. And so I really hope you'll enjoy tonight's episode. I hope you'll get a lot out of it. And I hope you'll invite your friends and family to join you, because this information is just too important not to share with others. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching. And let's go ahead and dive into episode number 3.
How many times have we circled this fire? A prayer upon our lips. And how many times have we gone to the water's edge to give thanks for these gifts, and we will rise again. We will rise again. My people will rise again. Oh, will rise. So many times we've gone to the water's edge to give thanks for these gifts.
If you were to ask people, what's the most important part of health? Surgery, pharmaceuticals, or the food you put into your body every day? I gotta believe out of 100 people, like 99 of them would say the food you put into your body is the most important part of health. However, when people get sick, they go to their doctor and the doctor says, well, I'm gonna prescribe this or I'm gonna do this surgery, right? How often does the doctor say, well, the thing of it is you're not eating enough kale. You need more beets and carrots in your diet. How often does that happen? Right? It's crazy, actually. And because I believe, it's not that I'm not anti-doctor, I'm actually not anti-anything. I love doctors. I think they do a fabulous job. I just believe that most of them, because of the schools they went to, have become misguided. It used to be, I remember when I was a kid, I'd go to see my doctor for my yearly checkup. He'd be with me like 45 minutes. I was an 8-year-old kid. I was in perfect health. He didn't need to be with me. He's checking everything out, making his examinations, etc. Now, I haven't been to a doctor since I was 17, but I talk to other people that go. They say they go to their doctor for a doctor's appointment, and they get to 5 or 10 minutes with their doctor. Well, what can a doctor do in 5 or 10 minutes? You know what they can do? Write a prescription. That's all they can do. These doctors now, because of the HMO thing that's happened in the last 10 or 20 years, I believe anyway, they're so under pressure to perform, or they get kicked out of the system, that they have these quotas that they have to meet. And because they have to meet these quotas, they only get 5 or 10 minutes with their people. It's crazy, it's insane. That's not medicine. That's like a factory. It's like being in a factory. I don't blame the doctors for that. They're stuck. I mean, heck, they went to school for 6, 7, 8 years. Now they're practicing their profession. They're coming from their heart. They're doing the best they can. Most of the doctors I've talked to have figured out that this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. And they're stuck though, because they've got $350,000 loan payment to make for their college loans, and they've got a house, and they've got a car, and they've got 2 young children, and the only way they can stay in that HMO is to be a performer. If you get below that certain line, they kick you out of the program, then what are you going to do? Start your own practice? It's going to cost another couple $100,000. It's not going to happen. So they're forced into a system that makes them, mandates that they write prescriptions and suggest surgery.
When I was 9 years old, I was diagnosed with diabetes. Within that year, my father also got sick with hyperthyroid and arthritis. My mom had arrhythmia. My sister had asthma. So we turned to the medical industry establishment, and they all told us essentially the same thing. Take these pills for the rest of your life and you'll never get better. And so my mom didn't think that was a good option. She started doing her own research. That led us to completely gut what we were doing, completely stop eating the standard American, standard world diet. We started exercising, eating healthy foods, sleeping on hard beds in fresh air. We basically started living an extremely alternative lifestyle. And it didn't take long for our health problems to start going away. Basically, my symptoms of diabetes started to go away. Everybody in my family started experiencing similar things. We went back to our doctors. They told us it's just chance. It has nothing to do with the way that you're eating. And that basically was that. That was that. We never went back there again.
A lot of the reason we think that diabetes is such a terrible problem is people don't have access to healthy, organic, locally grown produce. In fact, the USDA is clear about identifying this reservation and many other reservations as a food desert. So what got us involved in growing our own food for our own cafeteria was the desire to have some impact on the health of our children and their families. We know that if children develop healthier diets, their families are much more likely to develop those healthy diets than if we as school people told them something they need to do to change their eating habits. So it began from that impulse. At the same time, we have the impulse to connect to our local culture and to support the valuable, sustainable things of the culture. And it turns out that having been among Native people for 40 years now, I remember times when virtually every family had their own farm and their own herd of sheep, and it was all organic. There was no other type. It wasn't like some people had organic and some people had pesticides. Everybody was organic. And that changed so much over the past 40 years that now we really need to do something to re-engage local farmers and growers. Our hope with our school, as an example, is we can reach out to the local farmers and growers and indeed show them how we're growing our own food year-round through our greenhouses, and encourage the farmers to get engaged in growing with greenhouses year-round so that they can sell their produce to other schools. We think that is sustainable.
If you just stop and think about that one issue of the air quality and the oxygen level on our planet, we need to do something right now. We can't wait for 200 years to change it. We can't wait for 1,000 years to. We have to start changing it right now. When the rainforest is gone, it's too late. And so we need to be the change that we want to see, and we need to do it right now. And so that sustainability issue on food is so important. And tragically in our society, we think that food is stuff that comes in a box out of a fast food store, and actually that product that's in that box, to me, isn't even food. It might look like food, look like 40 years ago or so, but food to me is something that nurtures the body and sustains it. Again, sustains it. But that food that comes out of boxes in fast food stores doesn't sustain your health. You might be fooled into thinking it does because it's in your stomach and you feel full, and you get hungry 6 hours later and do it again, but that doesn't mean your body is sustained with nurturance. It means that you staved off a craving and helped create another one. And it's just astonishing to me that this is going on. And so part of what we're doing here is showing the masses that there is a way to do food service in a professional level in a restaurant that's 100% sustainable. And it's fun. It's exciting.
And we need to know how simple it is, because they're pulling the wool over our eyes out there. They are giving us stuff that's making us sick. I'm not going to do a big rant here, but if you go back to ordinary, everyday plants you can find and use them in whatever else you're eating, and stay away from processed things. There's nothing good in them, really. Sorry, but it's true. It's the kind of thing where you have very overweight people who are starving and have terrible nutrition. Fat people with rickets. This is not making sense. Well, it's because you can't absorb the anything from these foods. They're so coated, they're so covered up with chemicals. If you can't understand what you're reading on the box, put it back.
Your individual well-being is determined by the quality of your habitat. The health of your habitat determines your well-being. I mean, we could all live in Sudan, and we'd know we'd know the difference then between Sudan and the United States here. But the difference between living in a beautiful habitat and essentially a sterile system is just amazing. We could all live in a healthy habitat like we've produced here at the Living Systems Institute that is productive, is providing for a huge number of your needs in the way of food, clothing, shelter, education, and healthcare. Those are the things that we would like to have abundant. Now, we're not anti-market. The market is a wonderful thing for what it does, right? It's an incentive to innovation and produces wonderful products for a relatively cheap price because of that automation. But the last number I heard was 4.3 billion people living on less than $5 a day. So that's more than half of the human race has no market value. Now, and the same for most of the species. Most of the species have no market value. Fresh air has no market value. Clean water has no market value. But those things have value. Those things are what make up the health of our habitat. And we can incorporate that value if we are integrating ourselves into natural systems. And that's what an integrated closed-loop production system is by encouraging the participation of all the different species that make up a whole soil ecosystem. And the way that we set up our greenhouses, the way we incorporate our chickens into the greenhouse production. By encouraging that participation, we are integrating more processes, closing more loops, getting more production for less cost of input, and reducing our waste to zero. And when we do that, we create a healthy habitat.
In the 1950s, I believe it was, there was one pediatric oncology unit in the world. Now I think that, if I remember correctly, there are 250 just in the United States. And then you can see videos on YouTube now and pictures, and it's like the number of children that are dying from cancer is astronomical. So then it's like, all right, what can I do? Because my theory is a little different from the other theories, then I kind of had this idea of like, okay, can we pick a spot that's so far in the woods of Montana that we're far, far away from most of the toxins? Can we build a building that is less toxic than most of the homes that are the standard homes in the United States? Can we fill it with furniture that's less toxic? Can we then grow food that is, because I think the organic standard is really, really weak. And I also believe there's a whole bunch more in the world of growing food that my philosophies are very different. So can we grow a quality of food that is 10 times, 100 times better than what you can find in your Whole Foods? And then can we bring somebody where the doctors say, you've got 1 week left to live? Can we bring them here and their illness mysteriously goes away?
As most people know, what we eat plays a big role. And when you are eating organic, veganic, and then if you go live food, you are creating a situation where you literally, if everybody ate that way, we could feed the world 7 to 10 times over. But that's pretty significant, okay? So that's a part of the sustainability. It's like, okay, well, the world's not ready for that now. We do understand that a meat-centered agriculture is a hoarding of resources. That's clear. A meat eater eats 4,500 gallons, takes 4,500 gallons of water a day. A vegan takes 300 gallons. Well, that's a pretty big difference.
Now, back in 1945, Einstein said, the number one thing we can do to save the planet, you know what he said? Vegetarian diet. 1945, are you kidding me? Back then, we didn't have ozone gas. We didn't even have a gas shortage, a petroleum shortage. We didn't have, it just came out of World War II. Obviously, the planet had had some issues, but we didn't have the environmental issues we had now. We didn't have the some of the economic crises we have now. We didn't have wars pervading the world. I mean, we just got out of World War II, but actually, compared to right now, there's more wars going on now and more death going on than then. And he was wise enough to know right then, vegetarian diet is the number one thing. He didn't say nuclear proliferation is the number one issue. He didn't say greenhouse gases, or he said vegetarian. Vegetarian diet's the number one thing.
But the big myth is, somehow you're, going vegan, you're not going to get enough protein, you're going to wither away. It's just not true. And I'm evidence of that. Here I am, healthier, stronger, more flexible than when I was a captain of an undefeated football team. So there's something missing in the discussion, and it's very mythological. The data is overwhelming. You want to have a sustainable planet? Go vegan. You're going to save your ecology dramatically. Boom. But you want to have a sustainable body? Go vegan. You'll be stronger, flexible. Vegans, the research suggests male vegans live 7.2 years longer, and female vegans live 4.4 years longer. Now, I'm not sure why there's a difference in that, but nevertheless, that's the case. So all those things start to look at, you want sustainability, you want healthy people, you want healthy people whose brains can function, eat lower on the food chain. You want less chronic disease, we're talking about cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Those are big players, right? But the fact is that meat, particularly the cooked meat, which is what people have a whole lot more inflammatory effect. We call it, there are a variety of research, but advanced glycation end products which basically accelerate aging when you're cooking. So without the detail, let's just look at the big picture. Total sustainability. By being vegan, you create a sustainable body and a sustainable mind, and you're more open to spirit in a certain way because you're closer to it. That sustainability then goes to sustainable families, and ultimately sustainable cultures and ecological biosystems that are far more sustainable, and therefore we create a vibrant living planet. So this is the key to sustainability from a holistic point of view.
Just to give you a cute example, on my summit, Raw Recovery, How Delicious Raw Foods Can Restore Our Health at Any Age, I have a weightlifter, one of the record holders in the world, who is not only vegan, but he says, my strength does not need victims. I measure myself against yesterday, not against others. And those are the kinds of concepts that are important to my thinking and my philosophy, and they play into everything.
I actually used to weigh 265 pounds. I was pre-diabetic, lethargic, I had no energy whatsoever. Hit rock bottom at an early age. I mean, age 15, I sat in front of a couch every single day and just ate junk food. I ate French fries and chicken McNuggets and just horrible, horrible food. I had no energy, and I had like an epiphany that went into my head. I was like, okay, I gotta change my lifestyle. Once I change my lifestyle, then I can actually go out into the world and do good. So I had this conscious decision to actually change my lifestyle around, started eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. Felt amazing, and I realized how putting sustenance into our body and nourishing our bodies can actually make a miraculous shift in your life, mentally, and also, your state of happiness too.
So basically I had a life-threatening illness. I might have not made it out of the hospital. I made it out, and at that point I figured, John, the most important thing in your life is not to just go for money. I just graduated college. Not to go for money and make $1 million and be successful. The goal is to simply have my health, because I almost lost my life, and that's not a fun place to be, especially when you're in your 20s, but at any age. And so I committed myself, okay, John, let's not focus on money because you might be back in this situation again. The doctor said I had a compromised immune system, that they blamed on my genes, that they said I could have not a reoccurrence of that disease, of spinal meningitis. It was completely gone, but I had fought it off, but I could get it again, or any other disease. So at that point, I decided all I knew when I left the hospital, I knew nothing about raw foods, nothing about anything, but I knew I needed to build my immune system so that I wouldn't be in the hospital again. And all along that journey, I've tried to better what I'm doing, and if I stayed with the diet that I was eating 20 years ago, I'm highly confident that I would not be as healthy as I am today, because my diet has evolved and changed with me as well as with the times. And I learn a lot of things through my diet, and always try to refocus and change what I'm doing to meet my current needs and my beliefs and new information that I learned.
If you were to study the human body for long enough, you will start to learn certain things, and it will lead you down a path that will make you question a lot of things that you may believe. And so it led me down a path of more plants, and more plants, and more plants I ate, the better I felt.
So when you eat a lot of raw foods, it's a very sustainable thing for the world because firstly, you're not taking part in many of the different industries such as the factory farming and packaging and things like this, especially when you're growing your own food.
One of the other things that led me to searching out growing my own food was I was essentially born with allergies, and I told that it was a chronic disease essentially that would be had my whole life, and it was required to be maintained with pharmaceutical methods. And at some point I just decided I was tired of taking it, and so I pretty much threw it all away. And then from there I began eating more nutritious food, more plant-based food, and I got rid of a lot of the other food, a lot of junk food, and that led me to experiencing better health, and to the point where I no longer had allergies. I was the worst person in my family with allergies, seasonal allergies to pollen and everything, and I'm at the point where I don't experience allergies, and my other family members that had very mild allergies are now experiencing allergies. And I know that it's through the nutrition and through a better way of eating that I am experiencing better health. And I've eliminated allergies essentially. It's been pretty significant.
That happens a lot. I hear that all the time, that people are curing themselves of debilitating diseases based on going on a plant-based diet. In Forks Over Knives, there are two doctors that did that documentary in that book, and they proved conclusively that not just a few, every single degenerative disease known to man is either curable or reversible with a plant-based diet. They don't even talk about raw. You know, we eat probably 80-90% raw vegetables here, and some cooked. So it's a much higher vibration diet. And that information to me should be on the front page of the New York Times. There's no reason for that not to be, other than the people that pay the money to advertise in the New York Times don't want it there. And so it's just bad business. Good for the planet, sustainable for the planet, sustainable for the health of the American people, but bad business, which is tragic.
There are, huge corporations like trying to get so much meat out into the world that they'll do whatever it takes. Literally, there are animals like being abused and, treated in slaughterhouses and just really, really crazy circumstances that we would never be exposed to. And I don't think you would realize until you actually do more research on these things. So being more aware about where your food sources are coming from is one big thing. And also just packaging. We live in this society where we consume so much and there's overly packaged everything. When you go to the store, everything is packaged. So one big thing I think we can all do is start buying more in bulk. When you buy more in bulk, you're saving more packaging, so you could bring your own bags and all of that. But also support the companies that are taking more effort to go into biodegradable packaging. Yes, it costs more, but you are doing, you're being responsible by purchasing, and you're investing in those people who are trying to make positive impact on the earth.
Today, modern scientific analysis is pretty much affirming everything that the ancients had accumulated their knowledge about what we call the atmospheric energy of plants, what organ meridian they quote tonify, which means, the word tonify means to bring into homeostasis and maintain it. And all of those factors that these ancient people figured out just brilliantly modern science is pretty much proving. Like there are acupuncture, some of the very first acupuncture maps from way back 1,000 years ago, it turns out they're exactly accurate on the meridians that are now scientifically confirmed.
They did testing on the garden green beans versus store-bought green beans, and if you look on this nutritional quality chart here, the protein is about double on the garden fresh green beans compared to the ones that you're buying at the store. So imagine having to eat half as much to get the same amount of protein. And it's just not just protein, it's also, you know, the calcium was over double. You know, people are, drink milk for your calcium, that's bogus, right? We need to eat more high quality greens. And I'm telling you, if guys are eating animal products, they're not eating high quality green beans, they're just eating, you know, low quality, some of the lowest quality foods that aren't even fit for human consumption. That are grown in really weak soil, so the food that the animals are eating are already, you know, diseased and bad and poor nutrition. And the animals eat that, and then they get poor nutrition. They're diseased and sick as well. So that's why they need antibiotics and all these other chemicals that you're also eating when you eat animals. So I really, if you don't do anything else, just go plant-based.
These are very real issues, okay? The European Union and the UN now in 2010, 4 years later, is actually timidly but honestly saying, you know, if we want a sustainable planet, the world's got to start thinking about being vegan. Now, they actually said that, okay? And so that's the key to understanding what we're talking about. So it's obvious.
It's so easy because it's sustainable. It makes so much sense. And for the people that can't be vegetarian for whatever reason in their brain, it doesn't compute for them. If you go to 80 or 90% vegetarianism, that's at least a step in the right direction, right? You know, I love being vegetarian. I've been doing it for 43 years now. I feel more energy in my body than I had when I was a 19-year-old. I'm 60 now. You know, I have more fun than I had then. I have more vibrancy. And I really truly believe it's because I don't have a lot of gunk in my body. I don't have a lot of things preventing me to do the things I want to do. If I wanted to run up to the top of Thunder Mountain later today, I could do that. Most people my age can't do that anymore. Their body's starting to break down. Do you know why? Because the diets that they're eating aren't sustainable. They're not sustaining their body. A vegetarian diet, if it's a healthy vegetarian diet, sustains your body. Now granted, you can be eating Cheetos and a Diet Pepsi and be a vegetarian, not sustainable. But if you're 100% organic, plant-based diet, that's a sustainable way to eat. And it's amazing. The food is amazing, right? I mean, our food's really good here. And so I believe that if you want to sustain your body, if you want to sustain your business, if you want to sustain your family, you want to sustain your community, and you're interested in sustaining the globe, it's imperative that you take a real hard, long look at a plant-based, organic diet. Whatever else you're eating, I can almost guarantee you is not sustainable.
Now there's more to it, because we also want sustainable humans, okay? And there is no question in my mind as a physician that people who eat organic food are going to be healthier and are going to have a whole lot less disruption in their mental functioning. There was a study done in Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, where they just fed organic food to the kids. Their behaviors dramatically improved. And they were just getting lunches. Their behaviors dramatically improved. They no longer need a police to patrol the hallways. Their academic scores improved. Their athletic scores improved. And the kids themselves said, it's so nice because I can walk down the hall and not have my brain agitated. I can actually just walk down the hall. So just going organic can make a tremendous difference in people's lives. There's lots of studies about this, but the difference is when kids are eating organic, they have between 1/4 to 1/6 the pesticides and herbicides in their blood. So it's like, well, if you realize that the average child today, baby, is born with 287 pesticides and herbicides in his umbilical cord, which is outrageous. 180 of them are carcinogens. 217 are neurotransmitter disruptors. It's like, it's obvious that if you go organic, you're going to cut that down significantly. Will we get rid of all? No, but less is significantly better, just like the people in Appleton, Wisconsin. They were just having their main meal being organic, and they had dramatic improvements. So it does make a difference for sustainable brains and sustainable agriculture and sustainable planet.
I believe that organic is the best because it is supposed to have been grown in closest with the laws of nature. Pesticides are things that they spray on your plants or on your foods that can cause cancer, heart disease, cardiovascular disease. They're unhealthy for your body. It's basically like ingesting a very deathly toxin. It's not good for you. Pesticides can be put into the soil or sprayed onto the plant, and that's never good. So organic ensures that it doesn't have pesticides. Permaculture is the next best thing, and a lot of our farmers use permaculture, which is basically growing in accordance with the laws of nature in an organic way that allows it to happen naturally. And genetically modified organisms, or seeds, basically, are seeds that have been tampered with in a plant, right, by scientists to be able to duplicate numerous amounts of one seeds so that they can commercially sell a fruit or a vegetable like a tomato. Like, for instance, this would mean inserting a fish gene in a tomato so they can create 1 million of the same type of tomato and monetize it and make money. That takes away the personality of the fruit or vegetable. It's almost, you're eating a scientific fruit. We want to be eating real fruits and vegetables, things that are organic, that come from a seed. Every fruit and vegetable should look different, should taste different, should ripen differently, because they're individuals just like us in a way, right?
The food that we grow here, I believe, is really important for two different reasons. One of them is, first of all, we take really great care of our soil and are always aspiring to do an even better job. We make our compost from our animal manures. The soil is always being enriched. We have biodynamic sprays that we treat our land homeopathically. Just like you would take homeopathics for your body, we make homeopathics for our land. And we mix that in with our compost, we spray the fields, and it draws in different elements. It makes the soil and the land and everything rich and vital. So there's that part of it. And that increases the nutrient density a great deal, tremendously. You know, the bricks on our tomatoes is very high. It's just the sweetness of it. You take a lettuce leaf and you look at it, and you can just about see light coming off of it. It's so alive. And when I eat that, I feel that same kind of aliveness. The second part is our interaction with the food. Rudolf Steiner was the one who started the movement 100 years ago about biodynamic agriculture. And he said one of the problems in the culture is that food is not raised with consciousness, with attention, with putting a part of myself into that plant or that animal. And what you have then is food that has it just doesn't have any vital force to it. It's alive, but that's almost like a technicality, you know. And you can be a conventional farm and put chemicals on your food, and I think that decreases the life force a bit. It's meant to be killing stuff around it, and I don't think that's good for it. You can be an organic farm and you can grow pretty darn good food, but you can be organic just simply by not doing things. In biodynamics, we add something extra to it, and that's the life force that is shared between us and whatever it is that we're raising. That elevates it to a whole nother level. That's food, and I look at it and I just see, it's like seeing light coming off of it. I don't actually physically see light, but there's a part of me that perceives it to be so healthy. And sometimes, especially if I'm traveling and I'm not here on my farm, I always take food with me that's from the farm, because I feel like when you grow your own food and you're pouring love and your heart and your soul into this food, and then you eat of that food, there's something fabulous that happens. There's something really, really amazing. It makes me feel more alive. It makes me feel healthier. It makes me feel stronger. I'm more clear thinking. There's an interaction with me and with nature that sustains me. So when I travel and take my own food, I'll pack a big bag of lettuce and see, can I carry this out for a few days? And then I take things, dried fruits or, whatever I can carry for however long I'm away. And I make sure I eat something from the farm every day. And I can feel when it goes into my body, there's something special that happens there. Something really, really wonderful.
In every advanced society, you do have specialization of roles. And so as this society has moved forward over the years, we have fewer total people growing food, and more specialists relying on leveraging various technologies, which unfortunately can include chemical pesticides, herbicides, and GMOs to produce food. But as this shift has taken place, even though the food production from the 1940s really began to improve through the mechanization of agriculture and the application of chemicals, it also became food that was chemically contaminated and less personal. The farmers know that the food they're producing isn't the food they have to eat. And you have many farmers today who will grow their own organic food to feed their families while they're producing chemically contaminated food to sell into the marketplace. So they're growing a product to sell to make money that they would not eat themselves, because they know the truth about the risks associated with pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate and even genetically modified crops. And they don't want to feed their families those same foods. So this rise of mechanized agriculture and corporate agriculture has, in essence, created a lower quality food for the masses. And it has distanced farmers from the kind of food that they want to feed their own families.
Genetically engineered foods do entail a unique set of risks. The scientific experts at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, who did probably what counts as the first systematic independent scientific review of the issue in 1991, concluded that they do entail different risks and have to be tested. Other experts, hundreds of other experts, and eminent institutions such as the Royal Society of Canada have reached the same conclusions. The Royal Society of Canada had said the default presumption for every genetically engineered food should be that a range of unintended disruptions has been created that could lead to deleterious side effects, harmful to human and animal health. So again, they said the default presumption is you presume something has gone wrong and there has to be careful safety testing to make sure that something hasn't gone wrong. Unfortunately, the kinds of rigorous testing that really are required by both the science and U.S. law have not been implemented. So the testing by and large has been quite deficient, often shockingly superficial, and often in several cases, troubling results have come up. Now, many times regulators have allowed the industry to fudge on that and to dilute the data by taking into account data that wasn't even in the controlled experiment, or scientists have been attacked who did the research, and the research has been attacked for very unjust reasons, and yet that stuck, because if you get enough scientists complaining about something, then many people start doubting it. Even studies that were solidly designed, published in peer-reviewed journals, and were far better designed and conducted than almost any of the studies that claim to show no problems. So we do know, both as a theoretical matter and as a practical matter, based on several studies that have returned troubling results, that GMOs entail health risks. There could be risks of unintended toxins, new toxins that haven't been in the food before. They could enter in several different ways. So the food could become poisonous. Now, that doesn't mean acutely poisonous, that people would be eating it and dropping dead within a day or a week or two. And in fact, it does not appear that the current crop of GMOs on the U.S. market are acutely toxic, or we probably would have known that. But most foodborne illness is chronic. It's cumulative. It develops over a long period of time, often many years. And that is the great danger. In fact, a food that's acutely toxic in the long run is safer because you learn about its toxicity very quickly. That's why toxic toadstools haven't killed as many people as tobacco. People didn't know that tobacco was slowly killing them. They did. Society has quickly learned, the human race has quickly learned, certain toadstools will kill you quickly, don't eat them. So with a food like GMOs, we're talking about the long run, and it's more potentially on a par with the kinds of risks of tobacco. It could take years to kill you, but it can make you very sick or it can kill you, and we're not sure how, again, that's why we need very strong, long-term tests to rule out long-term health effects. That hasn't been done.
When we start denaturing things, the body just gets a little confused and it doesn't really know what to do with these substances. But when we start reaching back to the land for the food, then the body can go, oh, okay, it can utilize the enzymes and vitamins and minerals in that food in a way that is 2 steps or 3 steps down the road if it's a packaged box item.
What I do for a living is I travel all around the world, and I do a lot of lectures and talks and teach people on how to heal from disease naturally with raw foods, but also you can do it on a cooked whole foods diet. Now, there are many diets out there on the market today. I'm sure you've heard of many of them, such as the Zone diet, the Macrobiotics diet, the South Beach diet, the Paleo diet. And all the creators of these diets, they claim to get results. They say people are healing from disease and losing weight. And to be honest with you, I've actually seen people do a lot of these diets and heal from disease and lose weight. And there's one common denominator on why they all succeed. And that common denominator is they all eliminate certain foods from their diets completely without any exception. And the crazy thing about it all, every one of these diets that I just mentioned and in any other diet out there that works, they all eliminate the processed foods.
Now, we do know organic food, according to all the studies combined, has about 25% more nutrient, significantly more antioxidants, and particularly polyphenols. So that's actually very good for you in general. So that's just one little piece, but it's a whole lifestyle. So at the Tree of Life Center US / Tree of Life Foundation, we have a long-standing organic veganic farming. We're using a special kind where we're adding a certain amount of bacteria to the soil, bacteria and fungus called effective microorganisms from Japan. We've examined our products as compared to organic and commercial with Carillion photography, and what we're doing using the effective microorganisms and increased mineralization from the sea water that's 1 to 10,000 or 1 to 1,000 dilute, we're literally finding a tremendous amount greater energy from the Carillion photography in the full produce.
I was reading a book by Gary Taubes called Why We Get Fat. And this is a really good book, and it has a scientific approach that I really love. And what it states is as soon as the third world country is introduced to flour and sugar, all of a sudden the obesity rates skyrocket and degenerative disease and ailments just skyrocket also. And refined sugars and processed starches are processed foods and the most damaging foods to the human body and the cause of disease. So generally people mistaken, like they hear about the raw food diet in order to heal from cancer or something like that, but it has nothing to do with eating raw foods. You can eat raw foods until you're blue in the face, but if you're going to McDonald's every day, you're not going to get too far. So healing really happens not when you eat raw foods, but when you eliminate the cause of disease, which is processed foods. So you simply eliminate processed foods, and then the body has God-given remedial capabilities to heal itself on its own.
We've had the last year or two have just been crazy great. It comes on 30 years, it stands on this 30 years of everyone working together, you know, all of our members, people all over the country working together on these things. But, you know, in the last 18 months, General Mills has committed to take GMOs out of their yellow box Cheerios. Chobani is moving forward with organic yogurt, and a deep commitment to shifting the food that are fed to the cows that make the that make the milk for the yogurt, to make that to be non-GMO. Abbott Laboratories is taking GMOs out of 3 of their infant formulas. I mean, this is very important. What we feed our children is extraordinarily important because they're so small and so vulnerable. In similar suit, Campbell's has just announced that they're taking GMOs out of the soups and the other products of theirs that go primarily to kids, and they're moving to more organics for their kids. They own Pepperidge Farm, and Pepperidge Farm, a lot of parents feed goldfish, the little crackers, to their kids. So they're making 3 lines of organic and non-GMO goldfish. So we're really pleased with what's going on in the food sector. Things are moving very quickly, and I just want to say to everyone out there who has ever stopped purchasing something because they know it's unhealthy, has started purchasing organic because they know it's healthy, organic and non-GMO, has called a company, has put something on their Facebook, has signed one of our petitions, let me tell you, that's what makes these victories possible. Sometimes people wonder, does it matter if I sign those petitions online? Absolutely yes. When we walk into a company and we say, you know, there are 40,000 people, 100,000 people, 250,000 people who have signed this petition, they listen because they know you are their customers and they need to keep you. So I want to thank you for the economic choices you make. These companies monitor. If you don't buy something, and they see that demand dropping off, they pick it up. You know, it used to be said that it only took 2% of a company's customers asking for something different. I think today in the social media world, it's much less than that.
You know, my vision and hope for the future is really quite simple. I believe that if everyone took the time to learn to love themselves, that the world would change overnight, because once we love ourselves, it's easier to understand how to love other things. When we don't love ourselves, we could act in a self-destructive way and it doesn't matter. But once we love ourselves, self-destructive activities begin to cease. When we eat properly, when we nourish ourselves, we will nourish our brain, and our thoughts and our decisions will be better ones. And so I believe that through expressing self-love and proper nutrition, that the decisions that we make will ultimately improve, and the improving of those decisions is going to improve the world. Now, we could put all types of altruistic and pie in the sky goals, but the simplest goal is to love each other and to love ourselves and to love the earth. And when we do that, it's really that simple. We don't harm the things we love. If we love each other and if we love the earth, then we will stop harming the earth as well.
What I'm committed to sharing with humanity, the teachings that I've been given and asked to carry and been given permission to share, is really about understanding the intelligence and the power of the emotional body. That as we can learn to authentically nurture all the feelings that come up through this cycle, we can achieve what we're here to achieve, and that the emotional body anchors us fully in this reality. And when we're anchored fully in this reality, we can act impeccably, we can respond. We can respond to grief, we don't have to numb out grief. It's really the suppression of emotions that has created the imbalance with nature. As human beings, our aspect of nature, our emotions, have not been honored. And so as we return to nature, starting with the emotional body is the first step for integration, and emotional healing affects everything, how you perceive reality, how you run energy in your body. All sickness can change. All lineages point back to when there's a shift, a genuine shift, authentic shift in the emotional body, everything else changes. So you know, as we go through this collective awakening process together, your stuff is going to come up. You're going to face some uncomfortable feelings that you've never faced before, and it's all about getting support. So my message within that piece is just make sure you have grounded support in your life for what's coming, that you have people that you can turn to, that you trust for the answers.
Now, some of our other foundational principles of sustainability were around not only that we treated our staff and our guests and our purveyors, but also each other. And there's such a thing as emotional sustainability. And because we've dug deep into our own emotional isms and done a lot of work with that, we found that these same principles that apply to the food on our plates that we serve here actually apply to relationships as well. And it doesn't matter if it's a relationship between husband and wife, or friends, or business people, or only maybe the clerk at the store that you only see one time in your life, your guests in the restaurant. The basic principles are always the same, that if you deal with people in a sustainable way, then things will be on that upward spiral. If it's unsustainable, then clearly you're in a downward spiral.
You know, if I could leave the world with a thought, this has to be it. The life that we've been granted, the amazing gift that happened when we were born, is something that cannot be replicated. It's amazing, our ability to taste and feel and smell, to have emotions, to cry and to feel ecstasy. These are incredible, and we take them for granted. We want to leave life itself as a legacy for the ones that come after us. The quality of life for those who will follow us needs to be better than the quality of life that we experienced. And my final thought is that if we appreciate this life, if we truly do, then that's going to be expressed in our actions. And so appreciation for life is where it all begins. Understanding the gift that has been given to us and living it without regrets, and most importantly, living it without letting our past interfere with our future. You know, we were all born to imperfect parents, and we all have suffered in our lifetime. Our ability to forgive those who have trespassed against us, as they say. Our ability to love as though we've never been hurt. This is the key to life. This is the key to happiness. Because no matter what has happened, if it didn't kill you, you're still experiencing life, and you had a chance to learn from that. So you should consider it a blessing. If you consider everything that ever happened to you as a blessing, then your attitude will change. And when your attitude changes, your life will change.
So one of the things that I've learned was that the key was to leading a healthy lifestyle in this day and age is growing your own food, because the standard agriculture practices are simply not doing it. You know, they're there just like any other business to make a buck. And, you know, I hate to say they cut corners or whatever, but they just do what they're taught with the least amount of inputs to grow the maximum amount of outputs, which, in my opinion, are nutritionally deficient.
I feel, and I would say I know, that diverse ecosystems produce more nutritional food than other types of systems. So that led me down a path of, again, designing gardens with permaculture concepts. I want as much nutrition as possible in my food.
The primary chemical that's sprayed on genetically modified crops, glyphosate, contaminates fields for a decade or more. It destroys the soil ecology, the soil microbes, and that delicate balance that produces healthy plants by supporting healthy roots. That's destroyed by glyphosate. And as such, glyphosate renders viable fields into dead fields for 5 or 10 years, or maybe even more. We don't even know how long this goes on. I was touring a macadamia nut farm on the big island of Hawaii a few years ago. And they had this beautiful orchard of amazing nut-producing trees. These are super delicious nuts. And one year they decided to spray the weeds around the trees with Roundup, glyphosate. It not only killed the weeds, it killed the entire farm. It destroyed the macadamia nut trees. Completely destroyed them, turned them into mutant nut-producing trees. All the nuts were mutated after that. Wiped out a mac nut farm that had been in the family for generations. That is a perfect example of what glyphosate is doing to us all. It is wiping out generations of healthy soils and leading us into a future of a food collapse.
What's going on in the healthcare system isn't sustainable. And so it's collapsing, and we all kind of see that happening. It's unsustainable financially. It's unsustainable it's not really doing the job it's meant to do. And so people are turning to alternatives. And as they do that more and more, people are going to awake to a plant-based diet, which is sustainable for the body and for the planet. And there's going to be a groundswell, a mushrooming effect. And it's going to become very, very mainstream to be a vegetarian.
There's a lot of aspects to having a food strategy for healthy food. And one of the strategies is first teaching people about what healthy food is. And we've made a lot of gains on urban gardens throughout the city, and especially the kitchen gardens around schools, to start creating not only more educated consumers of food, but also home food ambassadors. To be able to say, you know, Mom, I had some chard at school. It was really good. Why can't we buy some chard and I'll help show you how to fix it? That is something that will create kind of a sustainable lifestyle for generations. So we've made a lot of gains on that. The other part is that we've created many more urban farms. We've done a lot to expand farmers markets all through the city. Obviously, we have to do more. When I represented Ward 6 for DC, Ward 6 had more public housing than any other ward in the city. And it's not east of the river, it's not known as the poor part of the city, but we have a lot of public housing. When I was first elected, we had 2 major supermarkets. When I left, they were going on 9. So that fresh food is walkable to a lot of folks.
There was a study that I saw a couple of years back. I cannot quote it directly, but basically what the gist of it was is 80% of the people taking antidepressants are missing their trace minerals. And if they just take the trace minerals, they don't need the antidepressants anymore. We don't understand that we need 56 or 59 trace minerals, some number like that, in order to reproduce the cells in our body. And when you don't get them in your food, which we used to, you start getting breaks in the DNA where you can't, again, just like the plants where I said if they don't have calcium, they replace the cell walls with potassium or one of those other ones. We're doing the same thing. So we're diseasing ourselves because we're not getting what we need. And this is very simple biology. This is not rocket science. Thing is it's been glossed over. And now, frighteningly, I've heard that the generation of children that are now children, their parents will outlive them. This is just, what are you doing? I'm a grandmother. No, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. I just had my 70th birthday. I have no prescriptions. None, 0. They keep saying, where are your prescriptions? I don't have any. I have no drug plan, sorry, don't need it. It's because I let plants talk to me. I eat what I'm told to eat by my body. You know, if my body says you need kale, I'll sit down and make a whole meal of kale, you know? And I don't know why it needs it, but if that's what it needs, I'll do it. It's like that.
The basic philosophy behind what we do is to help maintain the body, spirit, and mind in a homeostasis with three primary energies we call Jing, Qi, and Shin. Jing, your body and its capacity to reproduce itself. Qi, the flame of life that is the act of evolution occurring. And Shin, the spirit. So our orientation is to help bring a person into balance with all of those. It's fine to have a nice buff body, right? It's nice to have sexual potency, right? It's great. It's nice to have good health and digestive energy so that you're always got robust energy for your day. But that's just materialism if we're not bringing it up to the crown chakra and recognizing how we can better support the whole of not only humanity, but all of life on Earth. So the egocentricity of humans now has to spread back into the permaculture model. You know, how do we live completely in harmony with this? When we have tonified those two treasures I call Jing and Qi, the physical body and the energy of our metabolism and our evolution, and resonate that to the higher frequency, then the messages of the give back, the replenishment, will be there.
When we make choices, it affects everything, you know. And so for me and for Circle of Children, we choose to make health-conscious choices that affects life in ways that allow it to become more abundant and more happy and more in a flourishing state. So it really starts with, you know, what do we choose to eat? Well, we choose to eat organic, you know. What else, you know? It's like we choose to buy whole foods. We choose to grow most of our foods, you know. We choose to teach young people how to grow these foods because that's what creates sustainability. You know, it's like it's not just for us and what we're doing right now as this generation. If we can pass on these skills to the next generation and these values behind, you know, learning these skills, then the next generation will carry that flame for us and creating, you know, and allow for the garden to continue to be tended to and continue to build and grow upon itself, because sustainability is much more than like thinking about 10 years. You know, it's about thinking of, as the, you know, many indigenous cultures said, about the next 7 generations. So what we plant now will be reaping those fruits many years down the road.
The Victory Garden movement was during World War II, and there were a lot of shortages going on. I believe that rationing, actually the US government used to have ration stamps. Like, could that happen again? Well, absolutely. Even in the 70s, Nixon was talking about it. It was a very difficult time, and even the military was refusing men for military service due to malnutrition because there was problems with the food supply. And there was a big grassroots movement. Also, Eleanor Roosevelt was a big champion of it, of people digging up their backyards, digging up corner lots, planting things on balconies, planting things on rooftops, and an astonishing collective movement. 20 million Americans that were new gardeners within 1 year started producing 40% of the produce that America ate at that point in time. It was quite amazing, and it's something that we've done before and we can do again.
And in my opinion, we're going to have to do it again. Otherwise, we're not going to have another choice for healthy food. You know, 20 million Americans growing their own food, or at least a portion of their own food, beautiful. We're going to need at least half or more of our nation growing our own food in backyards, in community gardens, in co-ops and collectives where people are sharing and exchanging and trading what they grow. You know, this is the future. It's not about going back to the old times. It's about taking the experience and the wisdom of the past and bringing it forward so that we can create a sustainable future, a healthy future, a vibrant future for ourselves, for our children, for our families, and for our communities. And that leads us into episode number 4. Tomorrow night, which is about sustainable education, sustainable children, sustainable families, and sustainable parenting. And how do we educate, how do we teach, how do we learn as an adult and as a child, as a school teacher, and as anybody in between, in a sustainable, meaningful, vibrant way. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please join our movement, support this documentary series, share it with everybody you know, and I'll see you in tomorrow night's episode. Take care.